The Valanthi had ruled the stars for 60,000 years. Their ships moved between galaxies like silver fish swimming through dark water. Their cities floated in the emptiness of space, shining with lights that never went out. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched young species take their first steps into the void and then fade away into dust. The Valanthi believed they had seen everything the universe had to offer. They were wrong. Deep beneath the surface of their most sacred moon, in a place where no living Valanthi had walked for 10,000 years, there was a room. The walls of this room were made of crystal that glowed with a soft blue light. The air inside was old and still, and on the walls, carved in a language older than the Valanthi themselves, were words that had been waiting for this moment. High Archivist Zeloth Quan was 342 years old. By Valanthi standards, he was barely middle-aged. He had spent his entire life guarding the entrance to this room, as his father had done before him, and his grandfather before that. None of them had ever opened the door. None of them had ever read what was written inside. They only knew that someday, something would happen, and the door would open on its own. That day had finally come. Zeloth Quan stood before the glowing door and watched as the ancient locks began to turn. He could hear sounds coming from inside, sounds like whispers, like the voices of beings who had died before his species had learned to walk upright. His hands were shaking. His hearts were beating too fast. He wanted to run away, but he could not move. Far across the galaxy, a small ship from Earth was making its way through uncharted space. The ship was called the Horizon, and it carried 47 humans who had volunteered to travel farther from home than any human had ever gone before. Their mission was simple: find new worlds, make new friends, and show the universe that humanity was ready to take its place among the stars. Commander Daniel Perry stood on the bridge of the Horizon and looked out at the endless darkness. He was 45 years old, with gray hair at his temples and lines around his eyes from years of staring at screens and stars. He had a wife back on Earth and 2 daughters who sent him video messages every week. He missed them more than he would ever admit. Beside him stood Dr. Lisa Hartwell, the ship's expert in alien languages. She was younger than Daniel, with bright eyes and a quick smile. She had spent her whole life dreaming of this moment, of the day when humanity would finally meet another intelligent species. Now that the moment was close, she found that she was both excited and terrified. "We are receiving a signal," said the ship's computer. "Unknown origin. Unknown language." Daniel and Lisa looked at each other. This was it. This was the moment they had been waiting for. "Can you translate it?" Daniel asked. "Working," said the computer. "The signal appears to be a greeting. It is coming from a space station approximately 2 light hours from our current position." Lisa leaned forward, her fingers moving quickly over her console. "I am picking up visual data. Daniel, you need to see this." The main screen flickered and then showed an image that made everyone on the bridge stop breathing. The space station was enormous, larger than any structure humans had ever built. It was shaped like a flower, with great curved petals of metal and crystal extending outward from a central core. Lights moved across its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. "It is beautiful," Lisa whispered. "It is also sending us coordinates," Daniel said. "I think they want us to come closer." He looked around at his crew. These were good people, brave people who had left everything behind to come on this journey. He could see the fear in their eyes. But he could also see something else. He could see hope. "Take us in," Daniel ordered. Slowly, the Horizon moved forward, crossing the distance between the stars with careful precision. As they got closer to the station, they could see smaller ships moving around it. Ships of strange shapes and sizes. Some looked like insects, some looked like birds, some looked like nothing Daniel had ever imagined. "We are being scanned," Lisa reported. "Multiple frequencies. They are learning everything about us. Let them," Daniel said. "We have nothing to hide." When the Horizon finally docked with the great station, a delegation was waiting for them. The Valanthi were tall and thin, with skin that seemed to glow from within. Their eyes were large and dark, like pools of ink. They moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy by comparison. But there was something wrong. Daniel could see it in the way they held themselves, in the way they kept glancing at each other, as if they were afraid. These beings had lived for thousands of years. They had technology that humans could barely understand, and yet they were looking at Daniel and his crew as if they were the most terrifying things in the universe. "Welcome," said the leader of the delegation, a Valanthi named Veeth Sala. Her voice was soft and musical, but there was a tremor in it that she could not hide. "We have been expecting you." "We have been expecting you." "Expecting us?" Lisa asked. "How is that possible? We did not even know you existed until a few hours ago." Veeth Sala closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them again, Daniel could see something that looked very much like sorrow. "There is much we need to tell you," she said. "Much that we ourselves do not fully understand. But first, you must know that your arrival here has set something in motion. Something that cannot be stopped." "What do you mean?" Daniel asked. "Come with me," Veeth Sala said. "There is something you need to see." She led them through the station, through corridors that seemed to go on forever, past windows that looked out on stars Daniel did not recognize. Other aliens watched them pass, creatures of every shape and size, and all of them had the same expression on their faces. It was fear. Finally, they reached a room where a screen covered an entire wall. On the screen was an image of the glowing door deep beneath the sacred moon. Zeloth Quan was standing before it, and the door was opening. 10,000 years ago, Veeth Sala said, the beings who created us left behind a warning. They told us that someday, a species would come from a small world at the edge of the galaxy. They told us that this species would be different from all others, and they told us to be ready. "Ready for what?" Lisa asked. Veeth Sala turned to look at her, and in that moment, Daniel understood that everything was about to change. "Ready for you," Veeth Sala said. "The prophecy warned us about humans, and now you are here." Part 2. Words written in Starfire. 6 months passed after the humans arrived at the Valanthi station. 6 months of learning, of translating, of trying to understand things that seemed impossible. The crew of the Horizon had become something between guests and prisoners. They were free to move around the station, free to talk to the other species who lived there, but they were always being watched, always being studied, always being feared. Daniel Perry spent most of his time in meetings with Valanthi officials, trying to explain that humans were not a threat. Lisa Hartwell worked day and night with Valanthi linguists, learning their language and teaching them English. The rest of the crew explored the station, made friends where they could, and tried to ignore the way other aliens looked at them. But the real work was happening far away, on the sacred moon of Kethris Prime. High Archivist Zeloth Quan had entered the Forbidden Room on the day the humans arrived, and he had not come out since. Inside that room were tablets made of crystal, covered in writing that predated the Valanthi civilization by millions of years. The words had been written by beings called the Architects, the same beings who had created the Valanthi and seeded life across the galaxy. Now, after 6 months of careful work, Zeloth Quan was finally ready to share what he had found. The Grand Council of the Valanthi met in a chamber at the heart of their greatest city. The room was vast, with walls that curved upward to a ceiling so high it seemed to touch the stars. Hundreds of Valanthi elders sat in circles around a central platform, their glowing skin casting soft light across the floor. They had governed their civilization for thousands of years, guiding it through wars and disasters and the slow decline of empires. They believed they were wise. They believed they were prepared for anything. They were not prepared for this. Lieutenant Kevin Cole was the only human allowed to attend the meeting. He was a historian, a quiet man with glasses and a habit of taking notes on everything he saw. Daniel had chosen him because he was calm and because he listened more than he talked. Kevin stood at the edge of the platform, feeling very small and very alone. As Zeloth Quan began to speak, "The architects created us," Zeloth Quan said. His voice was old and tired, the voice of someone who had seen too much. "We have always known this. They shaped our bodies, our minds, our very souls. They gave us the gift of telepathy so that we could understand each other. They gave us long lives so that we could learn wisdom. They gave us everything we needed to build a great civilization among the stars. The council members nodded. This was history. This was truth. But the architects also left us warnings, Zelethquan continued. They told us about dangers we would face in the ages to come. They told us about enemies who would try to destroy us. And they told us about one species, one single species, that would be different from all the others. He paused, and the silence in the chamber was absolute. They told us about humans. Kevin felt his heart beating faster. He wanted to say something, to defend his species, but he forced himself to stay quiet. He needed to hear this. They all did. Zelethquan raised his hands, and the air above the platform began to glow. Words appeared in the light, ancient words written in a language that hurt to look at. As he spoke, the words translated themselves into sounds that Kevin could understand. They will come from the third world of an unremarkable star. They will be fragile and short-lived. They will fight among themselves and destroy their own world, and make the same mistakes over and over again. They will lack the gifts we have given to our other children. They will be alone in their own minds, unable to share thoughts, unable to feel the harmony that binds all designed species together. Kevin listened, and he felt something cold settling in his stomach. The prophecy was describing humanity, and it was not kind. But they will possess something we could not predict, Zelethquan continued, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. Something we could not design, something we could not understand. They will carry within them a fire that does not burn, a hunger that does not consume, a will that does not break. They will call it many names: hope, defiance, love, stubbornness, courage. We have no word for it in any language we have ever created. The council members were leaning forward now, their dark eyes fixed on the glowing words. And when they rise, Zelethquan read, they will change everything. They will either save what we have built, or they will destroy it. There is no middle path. There is no alternative. Prepare yourselves, children of our design. The undesigned ones are coming, and nothing will ever be the same. The words faded, and the chamber fell into silence. Kevin stood very still, thinking about what he had just heard. The architects had known about humans millions of years before humans even existed. They had known about the fire inside humanity, the thing that made them different. And they had been afraid of it. No, not afraid. Kevin looked at the words again in his memory, turning them over in his mind. The architects had not said to destroy the humans. They had not said to run away from them. They had said to prepare, to be ready. They had been waiting for this, hoping for it, maybe. One of the council elders stood up, her ancient face twisted with fear. We must destroy them, she said, before it is too late. Before they become what the prophecy says they will become. No, said another elder. The prophecy says they might save us. We cannot take that chance away. The prophecy says they might destroy us too. The first elder argued. Look at them. They are children. They know nothing. They have barely left their own world. Kevin cleared his throat. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. May I speak? He asked. Zelethquan nodded slowly. Kevin took a deep breath. He was just a historian. He was not trained for this. But someone had to say something, and he was the only human in the room. We did not ask for this prophecy, Kevin said. We did not know about it until you told us. We came here because we wanted to explore, to learn, to meet new friends. That is all. We do not want to destroy anything. We do not want to conquer anyone. We just want to see what is out there. He paused, looking around at the ancient faces watching him. But I know my people, he continued. I know what we are capable of. We have made terrible mistakes. We have hurt each other and hurt our world. But we have also done incredible things. We have never stopped trying to be better. We have never stopped hoping for a better future. Maybe that is the fire your prophecy talks about. Maybe that is what makes us different. He straightened his shoulders and met their eyes. You can fear us if you want, Kevin said. Or you can give us a chance. The choice is yours. The council was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Zeleth Kwan began to smile. Perhaps, the old archivist said, this is exactly what the architects wanted. The Valanthi decided to test the humans. It was not a cruel decision, not really. They simply needed to know if the prophecy was true. If humans really were what the architects had described, then the Valanthi needed to understand what that meant. And if the prophecy was wrong, if humans were just another short-lived species with big dreams and small abilities, then the council could stop worrying and go back to their normal lives. The test came in the form of a disaster. Nathara 7 was a small planet at the edge of Valanthi space. It was not important. It had no strategic value, no rare minerals, nothing that the great powers of the galaxy would fight over. But it did have a research colony, and that colony had 400 people living on it, mostly scientists and their families. Now they were dying. A storm system had formed around the planet 3 weeks ago. This was not an ordinary storm. The winds were strong enough to tear apart starships. The lightning could destroy anything electronic. The clouds themselves were filled with chemicals that could eat through metal. 3 Valanthi rescue teams had already tried to reach the colony. None of them had survived. The Valanthi leadership had decided that the colonists were already dead. There was no point in sending more ships to die in the storms. The planet would be marked as a hazard zone. And in a few months, when the storms finally cleared, someone would go down to collect the bodies. Captain Megan Torres heard about Nathara 7 during a routine meeting with Valanthi officials. She had taken command of the Horizon after Daniel Perry broke his leg in a docking accident. She was younger than Daniel. With dark hair and steady hands and a voice that never seemed to shake, no matter how bad things got. "How many people are down there?" she asked. 403, the Valanthi official said. "But they are certainly dead by now. The storms have been going for 22 days. No one could survive that long." Megan looked at the data on her screen. The storms were terrible, worse than anything she had ever seen. The chances of getting through them were very small. The chances of getting back out again were even smaller. "We will go," she said. The Valanthi official stared at her. "You did not understand me," he said. "The colonists are dead. There is no point in risking your ship." "They might not be dead," Megan said. "And as long as there is a chance, we are going." The official shook his head slowly. "This is madness," he said. "You will die. Your entire crew will die. For nothing." Megan smiled. But there was no humor in it. "Then we will die trying," she said. "That is what humans do. Live. Live. Live-ive. 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 Live-ive." The crew of the Horizon did not hesitate when Megan told them the plan. Dr. Adam Reese, the chief engineer, immediately started working on modifications to the ship's shields. He worked for 3 days without sleeping, drinking coffee, and talking to himself as he rebuilt systems that had never been designed for this kind of stress. Pilot Chris Huang ran simulation after simulation, trying to find a path through the storms that would not kill them all. Dr. Stephanie Park, the medical officer, prepared for every kind of injury she could imagine, and several she hoped she would never see. The Valanthi sent observers to watch. Ambassador Veeth Sala was among them. She stood on the bridge of the Horizon as the ship approached Nathara 7, and she could not understand what she was seeing. "You know the probability of survival," she said to Megan. "It is less than 15%. "I know," Megan said. "And you are still going?" "Yes." "Why?" Veeth Sala asked. The question was genuine. She truly did not understand. Megan thought about it for a moment. She finally said, "Because they are scared and alone, and probably think that everyone has given up on them. Because even if we fail, they will know that someone tried. That matters. That has to matter." Veeth Sala said nothing, but her eyes were wide. The Horizon entered the storms. For 6 hours, the ship was thrown around like a toy. The winds hit them from every direction. The lightning struck their shields over and over, draining power faster than Adam could restore it. Twice, the ship almost broke apart. 3 times, they lost all navigation and flew blind through clouds that burned like acid. Chris Huang flew like he had never flown before. His hands moved across the controls without conscious thought, reacting to dangers before they fully appeared. When one engine failed, he compensated. When another engine failed, he compensated again. When the main computer crashed, he flew by instinct alone. 2 shuttles were lost in the descent. 8 crew members were injured, some of them badly. Adam Reese held the reactor together through sheer willpower, refusing to let it fail even when every indicator said it should have exploded an hour ago. And then, somehow, they were through. The colony was still standing. The buildings were damaged and dark, but they were standing. And when the horizon landed in the middle of the compound, people came running out of the shelters. Living people, crying, laughing, disbelieving people who had thought they would never be rescued. Stephanie Park treated the injured while Megan organized the evacuation. There was not much time. The storms were closing in again, and the horizon could not survive another passage through them in its current condition. They had maybe 2 hours to get everyone on board and get back to space. They did it in 90 minutes. The horizon limped back through the upper atmosphere, its shields failing, its engines barely working, its hull scarred and burned. When it finally broke free of the planet's gravity, the crew was exhausted beyond words. Chris Huang had a broken arm. Stephanie Park had been awake for 40 hours. Adam Reese was bleeding from a wound on his head that he had not even noticed, but they had done it. 417 survivors were on board, including 23 Valanthi children who had been in the colony's school. Ambassador Veeth Sala watched as the human crew carried the injured to safety. She watched them laugh and cry and hug each other. She watched them check on the rescued colonists before they checked on themselves, and she finally understood what the prophecy had been trying to tell her. The fire that does not burn, she whispered to herself. The will that does not break. She looked at Megan Torres, this small human woman who had just done the impossible. The architects were right, Veeth Sala said. You truly are different. Megan just shrugged. We just did what anyone would do, she said, but Veeth Sala knew that was not true. No other species would have done this. No other species would have risked everything for strangers they had never met. That was the human difference. That was the fire. And now the whole galaxy would know about it. News of the Nathara 7 rescue spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species heard the story. Every civilization learned about the small human ship that had done what no one else could do. Some were impressed. Some were curious. And some were afraid. The HFY were afraid. They had built their empire on conquest and cruelty. For 8,000 years, they had moved from world to world, taking what they wanted and destroying what they did not need. Their ships were black as night, shaped like knives cutting through the darkness of space. Their soldiers were bred for war, knowing nothing else, wanting nothing else. They had fought the Valanthi to a standstill centuries ago, but they had never stopped hating them. They had never stopped waiting for the chance to finish what they had started. When the HFY learned about the prophecy, they saw only one path forward. Humans had to be destroyed, not conquered, not enslaved, but completely and utterly destroyed before they could become what the architects had predicted. The attack came without warning. It was a quiet day on Earth. The sun was shining over the Pacific Ocean. Children were playing in parks. People were going to work, eating breakfast, living their ordinary lives. They did not know that 12 HFY warships had just appeared near the moon. They did not know that weapons were charging, that targeting computers were locking onto cities, that the order to begin the extinction of humanity had already been given. Commander Ryan Blake knew. He was 53 years old and had spent 30 of those years in the Earth Defense Force. He had fought in the Belt Wars, survived the Titan incident, buried more friends than he wanted to remember. His hair was gray, his face was lined, and his hands were steady on the controls of the defense station orbiting Earth. When the alarm started screaming, Ryan did not panic. He looked at the screens showing the enemy fleet, counted the ships, calculated the odds, and smiled. "Well," he said to his crew, "I guess we have visitors." The odds were not good. Earth had only 6 capital ships and a scattered network of defense platforms. The HFY had 12 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. They had thousands of years of experience in warfare. They had weapons that could destroy planets. By every reasonable calculation, humanity should have been dead within the first hour. But Ryan Blake did not fight reasonably. He fought like a human. "Get me every ship we have," he ordered. Military, civilian, cargo haulers, mining vessels, anything that can fly, and anything that can shoot. "We are going to need all of them." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Katie Morrison, stared at him. "Sir, civilian ships are not armed. They will be destroyed in seconds. Then we will make sure they are not in the wrong place at the wrong time," Ryan said. "We are not going to win this by being stronger than them. We are going to win by being smarter." The battle began. The HFY expected the humans to form a defensive line around Earth. That was what every other species did when faced with overwhelming force. Stand and fight. Die with honor. Accept the inevitable end. The humans did not do that. Instead, they scattered. They hid behind asteroids and moons and space stations. They used civilian mining ships as decoys, making the HFY waste ammunition on targets that did not matter. They attacked from angles that should have been impossible, striking at engine systems and communication arrays instead of trying to destroy entire ships. Ryan Blake coordinated everything from his station. He moved his forces like pieces on a chessboard, always one step ahead of the enemy, always finding ways to turn their strength against them. When the HFY sent fighters to hunt down his ships, he led them into debris fields where their superior speed became a disadvantage. When they tried to bombard Earth directly, he positioned his remaining ships in their path, forcing them to fight instead of destroy. Engineer Greg Holloway was aboard the Earth's largest warship when its main reactor began to fail. The damage was too severe to repair properly. Every diagnostic said the reactor would explode in 15 minutes, taking the ship and everyone on it with it. Greg refused to accept that. He climbed into the reactor housing with nothing but a welding torch and a bag of spare parts. The radiation was intense. The heat was unbearable. He worked anyway, sealing cracks, rerouting power, holding the reactor together through skill and stubbornness and a lot of creative swearing. The reactor held. Lieutenant Katie Morrison flew her damaged fighter straight at a HFY command ship. Her weapons were exhausted, her shields were gone, and her engines were failing. She had one option left. "Tell my mother I love her," she said into her radio. And then she aimed for the enemy ship's main engine array. She ejected at the last possible second. Her fighter crashed into the engine, and the explosion tore through the HFY ship like a knife through paper. Katie floated in space, watching the enemy vessel break apart, waiting for someone to pick her up. Dr. Vanessa Cole was the chief medical officer on the defense station. During the battle, she did something no one expected. She broadcast emergency medical protocols to the HFY fleet on open channels, explaining how to treat the wounded, how to stop bleeding, how to save lives. "What are you doing?" someone asked her. "They are trying to kill us. They are still people," Vanessa said. "Even enemies deserve mercy." The battle lasted 9 hours. When the Valanthi relief fleet finally arrived, they found 8 HFY ships destroyed, 3 captured, and 1 fleeing into the darkness of space. The humans had lost 4 ships and over 6,000 lives. Earth was scarred, but standing. Humanity was bloody but unbroken. High Admiral Telekshan of the Valanthi looked at the wreckage and the exhausted, wounded humans who had somehow survived. "How did you do this?" she asked Ryan Blake. "You were outnumbered, outgunned. You should have lost." Ryan looked at her with tired eyes. "We do not know how to give up," he said. "We never learned." Telekshan was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to her officers. "Send word to the Grand Council," she said. "The prophecy spoke of a fire that does not burn. I believe I finally understand what the architects meant." She looked back at Earth, blue and green and alive against the blackness of space. "These humans, she said softly. They are going to change everything. 5 years had passed since the day humans first met the Volanthi. 5 years of learning and growing, and proving themselves to a galaxy that did not know what to make of them. 5 years of building friendships, and facing enemies, and showing everyone what the fire inside humanity could do. Now the time had come for humans to take their place among the stars. The Galactic Council met in a chamber that had been built 10,000 years ago. The room was enormous, with seats carved into the walls like an ancient theater, rising up in circles toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. Once, this chamber had held representatives from 1,000 species. Now, after wars and extinctions, and the slow cruelty of time, only a few hundred seats were filled. The Volanthi presided over the council, as they had for millennia. High Archivist Zeleth Kwan sat in the highest seat, looking down at the gathered species with eyes that had seen more history than most civilizations would ever know. Beside him sat the leaders of the Torani, the Chelth, the Bright Ones, and dozens of other species that humans were only beginning to understand. And in the corner, watching with dark and hateful eyes, sat the delegation from the Keth Vor. They had demanded to attend this meeting. They had demanded that humanity be denied a seat on the council. They had demanded that the prophecy be declared a lie, and that humans be classified as a threat to galactic peace. Their demands had been noted and ignored, but they had come anyway, hoping to find some way to stop what was about to happen. Ambassador Nicole Grant walked into the chamber alone. She was 41 years old, a former teacher from Ohio who had never imagined she would end up here. She had spent 20 years teaching history to children, helping them understand the past so they could build a better future. Then the stars had opened up, and everything had changed. Nicole had been chosen to represent humanity not because she was a soldier or a scientist or a politician. She had been chosen because she knew how to listen, how to understand, how to find common ground between people who thought they had nothing in common. She had been chosen because she believed, truly and deeply, that the universe could be better than it was. The chamber fell silent as she reached the central platform. "Thank you for allowing me to speak," Nicole said. Her voice was calm and clear, carrying to every corner of the room. "I know that many of you are still uncertain about humanity. I know that some of you are afraid of us, and I know that a prophecy written millions of years ago has made everything more complicated than it needs to be." She paused, looking around at the gathered species. "We did not ask to be the subject of that prophecy," she continued. "We did not know about it until you told us. We came into this galaxy hoping to make friends, to learn new things, to see wonders we could never have imagined. We did not come to conquer or destroy or fulfill some ancient prediction." The Keth Vor ambassador made a sound of disgust. "Lies," he said. "Everything they say is lies. The prophecy is clear. Humans will destroy everything we have built." Nicole turned to face him. She did not look angry. She looked sad. "The prophecy says we might destroy everything," she said gently. "It also says we might save everything." Those words were written by beings who lived millions of years before either of our species existed. They saw possibilities, not certainties. And the choice of which possibility becomes real is not theirs to make. It is ours. She turned back to the council. "I have read the prophecy," Nicole said. "I have studied every word, every translation, every interpretation. And I think I understand something that perhaps the architects did not intend for us to know." Zeleth Kwan leaned forward slightly, his ancient eyes bright with interest. "The architects designed you," Nicole said, gesturing at the assembled species. "All of you. They shaped your bodies and your minds and your societies. They gave you telepathy and harmony and long lives and everything they believed you would need to build great civilizations. They were trying to create the perfect species, the perfect citizens of the universe." She paused, letting the words settle. "But they could not design hope," she said. "They could not engineer the stubbornness that makes someone keep fighting when they should give up. They could not create the love that makes a mother protect her children, no matter the cost. They could not build the fire that burns inside a human heart, the thing that makes us look at an impossible situation and say, 'No, we will not accept this. We will find another way.'" Her voice grew stronger, filling the chamber. "That is what makes us different. Not our weapons, or our technology, or our numbers. It is our refusal to accept that anything is truly impossible. It is our belief that tomorrow can be better than today. It is the fire that does not burn. She looked directly at the HFY ambassador. You can fear that fire if you want, she said. You can try to destroy it. But I promise you, it will never go out. Not as long as a single human is still breathing. The chamber was silent. Nicole turned back to face the council, and when she spoke again, her voice was soft but clear. I am not here to make threats or demands. I am here to offer you something that the architects never could. Partnership. Friendship. The chance to face the future together, designed and undesigned, different but united. She smiled, and it was a warm smile. A human smile. The prophecy says we will change everything. Maybe that is true. But change does not have to mean destruction. Change can mean growth. It can mean hope. It can mean a galaxy where every species, designed or not, has a chance to be something more than they were before. She took a deep breath. That is the future I believe in, she said. And I hope you will believe in it too. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, Zeleth Kwan rose from his seat. He walked down the steps to the central platform, his ancient body moving with surprising grace. He stopped in front of Nicole and looked at her with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. The prophecy is complete, he said, his voice carrying through the chamber. The undesigned ones have arrived. He reached out and took Nicole's hand in his. Welcome to the Galactic Council, he said. Welcome to the family. One by one, the other delegations rose. The Torani, the Chelth, the Bright Ones, species whose names Nicole did not yet know. They rose not in opposition, but in acceptance. In hope. Even the HFY, after a long and bitter hesitation, inclined their heads. Outside the great windows of the chamber, the stars burned cold and eternal against the darkness. But somewhere among them, on a small blue world that most species had never even heard of, humanity was waking up to a new day, and the galaxy would never be the same.